today is very special because, you know, we are, most of us here are theatre people and we work with text and all that, but we don't really focus on images with sufficient depth. And as you know, Paula, it's such a different language, and you're increasingly interested in her presentation, showed us advertisements where Ravana features, for example, in Limca ads. You know, what happens to Ravana in the Limca context. So here we have one of India's greatest, you know, visual art historians and a great painter who's really lived with these images and narrative traditions for a very, very long time, both as a professor and also as an artist in his own right. So we've given Gulam, this is not a very big audience, but I hope it will be an attentive audience, as I'm sure it is. And there's a lot of room here for us to just focus, you know, let's use these 3 hours as meaningfully as possible to journey with you in visualizing the Ramayana.
Well, it was Rustam's persistence, at his persistence, that I'm here. What I thought of this great tradition in visual arts, and I was quite sort of, you know, confused. In fact, there is so much of it, both in sculpture and painting, murals, and scrolls, and what we call miniatures or the folio pictures, that the question that arose, which one, what to pick. And so I decided to focus on a few things. And these are the Ramayana sets which were painted. And so here, principally, there are 3 to 4 sets that I'm going to show you. But I will also show you images of other representations as well. And in a way, it is also retracing Ramayana. So it is in our linear. So from beginning from Ayodhya to Lanka, in that sense. So I have arranged them in that order. But there are multiple narrations, as Uramila in the very first presentation talked about. So here there are visual variants, so to say. And then also it is possible that in the visual presentation, the way in which it has been portrayed or articulated, there emerge other meanings. And this is what I would be interested in. So I have even picked up a few images right at the end to sort of do loud thinking about. You know. So there are, in that sense, a lot of images. We have almost 150 or more images. And we will go through that. Now, if I were to think of sets, the earliest set of Rama was painted at the Mughal court, 1588, when the first Ramayana set was presented to Emperor Akbar. Unfortunately, that entire set, which is in the City Palace Museum in Jaipur, has not been published, except for few folios, few images here and there, because that and the other set of pictures called Rasmanama, that means the Mahabharata, which was also painted at the court of Akbar, is under litigation. There is a court case on, and there are far too many claimants in the royal family, and hence it's not been resolved, and it is a loss that we have been bemoaning for last, I don't know, ever since I sort of learned about them. but it has not yet been resolved. Hopefully, something will happen and then we will be able to see that Ramayana as well. Now, if I were to tell you, I don't know how familiar you are with the Mughal workshop, but if you are not, I'll give you a brief background of it. That at the Mughal court, besides many other sets of paintings, when I say besides, what I mean is there are number of books which are painted, and these are books of history. At times, these are books of history in the sense that it narrates history of the preceding emperors, beginning from Timur, right up to, let us say, Akbar. And there is this book called Timur Nama, or Dastan Khandani Timuriya, which is in Khuda Bakhsh Library in Patna, intact book. But it continued to be painted until Shah Jahan. And hence you have literally pre-Akbar to sort of grandson of Akbar. So there are a number of others. So there is Babur Nama, and there is a contemporary history, which is history of Akbar. That's means Akbar Nama. So he had his historians to write the contemporary history. And you have two. One is Kolaine Akbari, another is sort of Akbar Nama. There are two men. I will not go into details of it, but one is very sympathetic, other is critical. Which is also very interesting that in his own time, there were two views of his own reign or his rule. Now that throws light on the kind of situation that prevailed and perhaps Akbar's politics. So it's not history alone, since he was interested in understanding the land he ruled. He got involved in opening a dialogue with the local populace. And in that he came upon these multiple faiths that existed in India. Obviously, he was a Sunni Muslim, but perhaps you know that they had also a Shia factor. When Humayun ran from Sher Shah, I don't know whether you know the history, his father, Humayun, was overrun by a Afghan, Sher Shah Suri. So Humayun sort of literally had to flee and landed at the court in Iran. Shah Tahmasp was the ruler, and Shia is a Shia ruler. And I think there was some kind of a give and take in which the Shia rituals were incorporated at the Mughal court. Now what is most interesting is that the lingua franca of the time was Farsi or Persian. We had number of soldiers and others, noblemen, from different parts of the world. So we had Turks, we had Afghans, we had various, but Farsi was a common language. And Farsi was a language of literature as well. So the great literature of, in that sense, not just Persia, but the Farsi speaking world was brought into India. Akbar is believed to be an illiterate man. He was, or rather, unlettered. But he was most interested in stories. He was most interested in culture in general. That means. So, among things that he did was to have a kind of a place for dialogue. And when he built the city of Fatehpur Sikri, the new kingdom which was eventually abandoned, there he had what is called Diwan-e-Aam and Diwan-e-Khas. Now, in that there is one particular place where he sat with people, they say, as it is recorded, because there was a library, there was a librarian, there was an archive. Everything was recorded. There was no mechanical means to record the dialogue, but everything is written down. That he had dialogues with representatives of different faiths. So he had his, who represented both the Sunni and the Shia faiths. He had Pandits, Hindu Pandits, he had Zoroastrians. And he had these Portuguese missionaries. Father Montserrat was there, Aqua Viva and Montserrat, both of them were around. And Jesuit, it was a Jesuit priest, and also the Jain monks. Okay. Each of the non-Muslim proponent of the faith had the hope that they would convert the emperor. And Akbar gave them sufficient reason because he got involved and interested in each one of them. Now, the story, if you expand it a little further, goes into making of books. And a series of books were made. So besides the books of history, which narrates the story of what we call House of Timur, the great Timur from where it began, there are books about religion. And obviously the two great epics, form part of it, both Ramayana and Mahabharata. Rajamanama, roughly called Book of War, that is Mahabharata. Also Yoga Vashishta was painted and several other texts were painted. So he had translators. So all his, those who wrote history also were employed in translating the Sanskrit texts into Farsi. So you have first mediation or a translation taking place. And it is in the Farsi language that Ramayana was narrated and painted. So in that sense, among the first sets of folios which we have of Ramayana are the folios in Farsi, in Persian. I am deliberately using the word Farsi because that is how it is called. Farsi is Iran, but that is how it was known. Now, his painters, as he established about, perhaps a workshop was established during the time of Humayun. But Humayun had gone away, as I just narrated. And when he returned, in a year's time he died. He sort of listening to a call for prayer. He fell from Purana Kila and died. And here was 13, 14-year-old Akbar, who ascended the throne. So the workshop continued and grew in size and in stature. And since it was an imperial workshop, artists from all over India were attracted to come and work there. And the librarian who had written in the margins of these books all details of artists who came from different parts. It said Bhim Gujarati, Surdas Gujarati, Phala Lahori, Phala Gwaliari, that Kashmiri, that. So he had a kind of literally his kingdom. All these who came, and each one carried with him his tradition. Whatever there existed in Kashmir or in Gwalior or in the court, smaller courts in Rajasthan, they all came and worked there alongside the two Persian architects that Humayun had done. The interesting story is that when Humayun went to Iran and he met Shah Tahmasp. Shah Tahmasp, the king of Iran, the emperor of Iran, was a great patron of arts. And among the greatest Shahnama, the story of kings, the great Shahnama was painted under his patronage, which unfortunately is now known as Bhutan Shahnama, because that whole set was sold to a man called Arthur Houghton, and who everybody thought would keep the book intact, but he had also begun to start. He began to sell each folio, and the price he paid for the entire set then became the price of a single folio. By anyway, that has been dispersed. But that man, Shah Tahmasp, had sort of begun to be little orthodox, or he was losing interest in visual art. So Humayun asked him whether he could lend his masters, two of his great artists, and Mir Sayyid Ali and Khwaja Abdul Samad, two artists, followed Humayun. They came at his court and worked as masters. They are called ustad, the word that is used. And so under these two ustads, we have these artists from all over India who work there. So there are umpteen names. You have Basavan, you have Daswant, you have Manohar, you have Bhim, you have Surdas. Literally several hundred artists, which Milo Beach has already recorded. Now, when these books were painted, how were they painted? It was a workshop in which you had painters, calligraphers, those who could perhaps burnish the paper, those who were gilders, those who used the low relief, calligraphers and binders all together, and plus a librarian who would then put the whole thing together and write names of calligraphers, write names of artists. In the process, what emerged was that sometimes not only the whole book, that one painting is done by Manohar and other is done by Basavan, but sometimes in a single painting, 5 artists have participated. So the librarian would write that Cheharanami is, that means the making of the face is by Basavan. And then the animals are painted by Miskin. Then the faience pattern is painted by a third person, etc., etc. So there was a kind of a collective within a single folio. And who were these artists? Where did they come from? They came from different parts of India, as you know. But my understanding is that majority of them, as you know, that the practice of art was part of various crafts. And the craft traditions in some way remain in the, what you call it, among the practitioners were mostly the Shudras. The Kshatriyas were not interested in it because there was, they could not exercise their might there. Vaishyas were also, actually the Jains, among the Vaishyas, employed artists even for their own texts, as they employed priests, who were Brahmanas for Jains. So they had a different story altogether. So artists were available who could paint for Jains, who could paint for others. And here there was a workshop in which the emperor had opened a workshop so they could paint for. So one of the first sets of painting, I was just talking to Rustam this morning, is the Hamza story, the Hamza Nama, the great paintings which are about 2.5 feet by 2 feet, painted on cloth with paper at the back and the text written on it. There were 1400 pictures they painted, which has different story, I won't go into that. But there were other books which are bound books, like the Babadnama, Akbarnama and Ramayana and Mahabharata. So these painters who worked there, they had stories which came from, let us say, Hamzanama came from, what shall we say, some Islamic part of the world. It was in, perhaps in Farsi or perhaps in Arabic, because Hamza happens to belong to the time of Harun al-Rashid. So maybe it was in the Arab-speaking world. But very interestingly, this story is not painted in Arab world. It's also not painted in the Farsi-speaking world outside India. Or if it is very rare. But in India it was painted twice, during the Sultanate period and also during the period during Akbar's reign. So the artists could paint a story they were not familiar with. The story of Hamza, which was, they said, about 300 tales, which were orally transmitted, and they say Akbar was very fond of. So obviously Akbar was equally fond of other stories. Could you get me some water? So obviously Ramayana, Mahabharata and all such stories were narrated. And so you have these artists. Now how would you see them? These are, let us say, suppose if my contention, if you hold on for a minute, that they belong to the lowest class, these craft people or the artists, came from different parts of India. And they were willing to paint for both those whose beliefs they did not share, or those who were superior in status. So it is interesting, there is a kind of an interface taking place, What I am trying to hint at is that they brought with them their own perceptions. Sometimes of the region they belong to, sometimes of the communities they belong to, and perhaps of their own politics. Something in a way they were. Now suppose if one were to take that there is an artist whose background is listed by the librarian. There is an artist called Daswant, great painter, and I think he has painted several paintings of Ramayana. He was son of a palki bearer, palanquin bearer. It's called Kahar. It's a community called Kahar, and it's recorded. And that he was epileptic. Now, one would like to extend this further and to see in his work. And every time I look at a Daswant's painting, there are some paintings which are not just attributed, but the librarian had actually named him. That wild pictures, some of them are absolutely, their strange sense of color, and also the scale of imagery, the kind of, something which is, in our terms we would call surreal, that kind of thing that is happening. So it is possible that there were all kinds of things. We don't know about others, there are many others, who perhaps have their own history. And this is something which came into these books. Now what is most interesting is that every story is localized. The Hamza story is localized in India, so it is all architecture of India, all the vegetation of India. And most interestingly, as you would see in the case of many such examples, that the heroic figure usually is the emperor. So in the character of Hamza, you would find echoes of Akbar. That Akbar was fighting wars from 1556 1566, Khomeini ascended the throne. But from 1562 to 1577, that is 15 years, when Hamza Nama was painted, Akbar was busy fighting the biggest war, including Chittor and all this. So you have the stories of war interwoven in Hamza stories, which are also stories of wars fought in India. So you have that kind of, there are these layers. And these layers are what? Unraveling. There are lots of things which are happening. What kind of soldiers you have, what type of alliances were there, what type of, how did they see the enemy, etc. And what is interesting is that the artists travelled with the war, in the war campaigns. So artists actually saw the world. And what happened sometimes. So all the encampment, all the big campaigns, like there is this fantastic painting in Akbarnama, the carts being sort of pushed and pulled on the hilly terrain, and you have hundreds of people in that, and how the army is marching or moving. And this is something like what shall we call it? The world that they saw. There was no photography. It is something which they notated, they remembered, and they portrayed. We do not know whether they had actually made anyone to sit before them. But a kind of a realism that evolved. And they came very close to making portraiture. Actually, the word surat in Farsi is very close to portrait. I don't know why we don't use these words. We have words and we use these words in our languages as well. So if you say surat nama, it would mean that it's a portraiture. To such an extent that there was a belief, and which grew later, that you could actually extract some aspect of the person you have portrayed. So it's not just a primitive belief. It was in a very sophisticated urban setting. The artists carried that kind of a power. It was believed that they could perhaps extract that. At a later stage, it is known that Jahangir, son of Akbar, when he ascended the throne, sent one of his artists to Persia. Because there was this kind of a tenuous relationship between Persia and the Mughals. It was not just Shia Sunni, but it was also the sharing of power. So the artist called Bishan Das was sent there. Now, Bishan Das was sent with a brief that he should take the likeness of the cousins of, that means the Persian kings, make portraits and bring them. Now the reason given was that you would be able to read something about the minds of those whom you portrait. So it was a kind of political ploy to know about the adversary. So there was that kind of portraiture. Then, if you were to then, let us say, make the story of Ramayana, how would you make the story of Ramayana? Where is Ram? What kind of Ram would you have? And then where is Ram? How would you make Ram? And then what about others? All other characters. Now these artists had this kind of a challenge before them to realize these characters. And these, unfortunately, since we don't have that many examples, because Ramayana is not published, so we do not really know the extent to which they went. But the few pictures that I will show will give you some idea as to what is it. But there was something in the book which, let us say, the story of Ramayana carried with it. And there was a belief in the book, not just the book, but also the book called Ramayana. There is an interesting story of Hamida Banu, Hamida Begum. Hamida was wife of Humayun and Akbar's mother. Akbar was born when Humayun was running away. He was born in, I think, Upperkot in Rajasthan, while Humayun was on the run. The most interesting part of the story of Humayun is that when he ran for his life, what he carried was several camel loads of books. Which emperor, when he is running for his life, would carry books? He carried books with him. They said that there was a library he could not dispense with. He had to carry his library. And that is from where he was coming down and he died. That is the story. Now the story goes that Hamida Banu, when she was ill on deathbed, she asked for the second Ramayana, which was painted perhaps in 1594. And I think it was in Agra. And she asked if Ramayana could be brought at her bedside. Interesting, no? What could be the connection? One of the connections that you would make is about exile. That the Ramayana, in some way, is about exile. And Humayun was exiled, as we know. So there was that kind of a connection which Humayun's wife was making, and she wanted Ramayana at her bedside while she was dying. So there was something about the book, and this book, in that sense, which was painted by a large number of artists from different regions of India, using the Farsi text, not the Sanskrit text. So you had translators, or you had those who would tell you what the story was about. And so there are images. What kind of images you would have? There are few images which I'll talk about, since we don't have that much documentation of the Mughal Ramayana. But next. Now, as you know, politically, Mughal and Rajput courts were at war. Rana Pratap, everybody knows in India, I think. I don't have to repeat that. Rose against Akbar. And as we also know that Chittor was sacked. So what kind of a relationship would exist after the sacking of, let us say, Rajput court, Rajput domain, Rajput kingdom? Then they became not necessarily vassals, they were not really taken to Mughal court, but they were allowed to be there in their kingdom. But then there was an allegiance to the Mughal court. So that relationship was, in a way, a bit tenuous. So the Rajputs, now, what is his name is Amar Singh and others. Actually, the fourth generation, Rana Jagat Singh. Now, Rana Jagat Singh, 1649, would be Shah Jahan. And they retained that kind of a relationship. And he then commissions a Ramayana. So something like from 1580 to, so about 60 years later we have a second or the third large set of Ramayana. Let me first tell you about what that Ramayana is. Then we'll go into the backdrop of it. It is, perhaps it's hundreds of pages and about 500 images. And it was commissioned by Jagat Singh between this period 1649 and 53, in 4 years. Jagat Singh dies in 1652. And his son was not interested, so he hurried up at the end and wound up. Now this entire set of, the whole drama was presented to James Todd. As everybody knows about James Todd, who wrote Annals and Antiquities of Rajasthan, who became a great authority of his time in the 18th century and the 19th century. And I think the grandson or great-grandson of Jagat Singh presented Ramayana to James Todd. And Todd took it to London, and eventually it was auctioned for some 63 pounds or something like that. It landed in British Museum. So there are 400 pictures of that. There are some 40 pictures in Udaipur and 40 pictures in another museum. Couple of them in Baroda, but majority of them are in the British Museum. Now, there is another dimension to it, that the painter who was selected, the master, is a Muslim. His name is Sahibuddin, Shihabuddin or something, but in Rajasthani it's known as Sahibuddin, the great master, who was with them for something like 40 or so before Jagat Singh. He had worked for his father and grandfather. The first Ragmala that was painted in Rajasthan, called Chavand Ragmala. Chavand, where Pratap had taken refuge. That is the place where the first Ragmala was painted, and that was painted by another Muslim artist called Nasiruddin. So you have Sahibuddin, who is in charge of this entire set of Ramayana. What is interesting that it is text, but that is the Sanskrit text. And the text is usually written by Jain monks. Interesting, no? And Jain monks, besides writing their own text, would also write for others. So that, and also the names of monks are known, they are recorded. Now, Sahibuddin could not have painted all the 500 pictures. So it is a workshop. So you have number of artists. The second artist who joined Sahibuddin was Manohar. So you have Sahibuddin and Manohar generally manning the production of Ramayana for those 4 to 5 years. And it is both contended and in some ways recorded. At times it's written that this is painted by Sahibuddin, or at times it is recorded that it is painted by Manohar. But at times you do not know. It's possible that, in the case of what they call Ustad, or the masters, would look at the finished work, and if they find a fault, they would correct it. So the master's hand perhaps would be visible. But if there were, others, who were equally competent, then the master would sort of leave it to them. And so these hundreds of pictures were painted. Now how would they paint Rama? What would be Rama in this case? So one suggestion, the kind of what shall we say, attribution that one could make is that it has to be the king. So you would have Jagat Singh and Ram overlapping. So the image of Jagat Singh in some way would help evolve the image of the great king Ram. And what about the rest? Now, Jagat Singh was building the great Udaipur palace during that period of time. And it is, some art historians contend that perhaps could be a kind of a model for some architectural images of Ayodhya. Would you use it for Sri Lanka also? No. It's very interesting that much of the images of Lanka do not show architecture well in the case of Sahitya. But if you were to look hard and get into them, the fortifications, the crenellations, and especially at one place where you see Ravan looking out of Jharoka, you know the balcony? You have the Mughal reference. The Mughal kings were known to appear in the balcony to listen to the populace. So there is that kind of a suggestion made. So the artist in some way devises ways of bringing in, or perhaps some kind of a territory, which was Mughal territory and so associated with Ravan's Lanka. Well, there are lots of other things that one can think of. Something which Paula was talking. I began on that journey of Ravan, particularly the 10 heads and 20 arms. How would you deal with that? And just to go further a little into that area, just even if it is an aside, and since we have time, so we could perhaps go into that. See, what happened at the Mughal court was to evolve an eclectic language. You had the Persian artists who brought with them the idiom that they were familiar with, having painted the Shahnamas and other things. You had the multiple schools, of India, from different parts, from Gwalior, from Gujarat, from Kashmir, etc. They also brought with them their own different ways of figuration, different ways of dealing with, let us say, imagery of different kind of architecture, vegetation, etc. But most interestingly, Akbar was interested in European. And among those who came, Father Montserrat and Aquaviva came, brought with them a copy of Bible.
Oh, what?
This Bible is called Plantin's Polyglot Bible, printed in Antwerp. And those images, the prints, which are etchings, were shown to artists. And many artists were asked to copy them. They did. Now there are two things which happen on the way. That the Indian artist found faults with those. There are two things he was not comfortable about. One was foreshortening. Am I clear about foreshortening?
Yeah.
Foreshortening is when you see this becomes too big and that becomes too small. So he would not deal with that. He would not like to deal with that. Other was the use of what is in European art known as chiaroscuro. It is what we call use of shadow. He was not familiar. He was not comfortable with that. So even when he copied, he avoided those. Both the things. Occasionally, he would pay tribute to one figure somewhere. Now what is interesting is that the European painting assumed an entirely different form at the hand of Mughal artists. And not, when you say Mughal artist, that particular artist, if it was Basavan, he would distort it in his own way, then the Swan. Or the coloration, for that matter. So they were not very comfortable with the kind of absolutely local, what we call local coloring. Local would mean that body had this color, the clothing has other color, the architecture. So it's separated. In the system in which they had worked, they could use this color, very bright color for the, you paint Krishna or you paint Ram and you have lapis, you could use blue. So, I mean, that sort of thing is quite different than the kind of local coloring that post-Renaissance artists had imbibed. So, but there was a kind of realism which married a kind of naturalism of Persian painting. Persian painting in some way had evolved in that direction. Thirdly, there was also inherent some kind of a response to naturalistic rendering in some schools in India prior to Mughal. So altogether it developed or evolved a very special kind of whatever you call it, naturalism, realism. And so they imbibed certain things and changed the Western mode of painting. Totally. If you look at these images today, in fact, not me, but many others who have seen, they find the copies far more interesting than the originals. Copies are livelier, because they have been tampered with. Something they have done to it, changed it in some way. Like the Madonna, who is feeding infant Christ, Basavan has painted, beautiful. Where he puts her on a carpet. I don't know, in most European painting you would not find her sitting on a carpet. And when you see the carpet, well, how do you paint? How do you make the carpet? How would you make her lying on a carpet? She is lying. Perhaps you know that in Mughal painting or in Indian painting, in general, even in Ajanta and elsewhere, there was no single point perspective. It was multifocal. Multiple, am I clear about it?
Yes.
Or shall I explain?
Yes, yes.
That there are multiple ways of looking. If you were to, for instance, if I were to look at this, I have one view. If I have to look at Rustam, I have a second view. I have the floor over there. I have a third view. I combine all. In a way, in some way, if I were to think of it, it's a mobile vision. And it's in a way real. Because when you move, you come face to face. It's frontal. It's not something which is static there and you are standing here and you are watching it. But you are moving. So the painter's eye moves to the object and discovers the object in its own whatever shape and form. And he paints that. And he combines this. So when Basavan paints the carpet, to those who are familiar with European perspective would say that it is viewed from top. Because it has got full rectangle. It's not receding rectangle. It's just pure rectangle, as if it is seen. It's not actually that, but what I just tried to explain, that object is seen differently. So obviously Madonna would look different then, no? If she is not in that kind of a perspective. Even though her figure, which he has borrowed from a European print, which seems to be partially in perspective, the rest of it completely changes it completely. Presents an entirely different vision altogether, and you have a new Madonna. It's not the same Madonna. And hence what happens here in either Raman or whatever images that you make, you have the court of Ravan as if viewed from above. Although it is not so. My own contention is that there is a great belief in, I am using the word visibility, but it's not just visibility. Make the word as visible as possible. Or rather, put it negatively. Make those things which disappear also visible. Something which goes at the back. You bring that aspect within your work. So you have, how would you, how shall I explain? Suppose if there is image, human image, and you have this or you have this hand. Now this hand is not visible. But that's not my view. My view is that both hands should be visible somewhere. And I evolve a mode, a device, by which I would show that it is at the back. At the same time, I would make it visible. So, in a way, I would make the word as visible as possible so that there is nothing that disappears. So, in other words, even in perspective, there is what they call, there is receding lines. And so the tracks of a train, as we say, actually don't meet. They appear to meet. Otherwise the trains won't run on them if they ever met. So you make them as you view. So it is not that you go above and say it's a bird's eye view. Actually the word bird's eye view is also incorrect. How does a bird look at it? We don't really know. And if you have eyes here on two sides of your head, nobody can see it like that. And bird doesn't see it like that. So the whole terminology is wrong. You don't look at it like that. It's those who are entrenched in one particular ideology, that is of certain kind of points, which I call illusionism rather than realism. But see everything else, because they are unable to understand, unable to view the way in which it has been articulated, visually by art, all over the world. But it's not just that China, entire Middle East, all over, people have seen the world so differently, not in illusionistic manner. It's only 16th century old. It's what? Not 16th, 15th century. One-eyed. The first artist is one-eyed in a way. But I'm not going into that. But, so how do you then visualize? So, what I was trying to say is that the artist tries to make the court of Ravana as possibly visual as he could make it. Bring in as many characters as he could. So the characters don't go behind each other. But the characters are near each other or slightly shifted so that you can see each character. Paula was telling me last evening that the demons in that series, each one has a character. So actually you could literally see them. And you see that artist is interested in evolving character of each of them. So what is most interesting, and that's another thing which interests me, is the portrayal of demons. Since we have been dealing with our and demonic, etc., etc. I think in a way demons have been dealt with in a very special way. I don't know, that can be multiple. I think the historians might tell us that it might have some kind of an identification with the artists might be making with it. And I don't know. But it's very interesting because the other characters are flat. Flat in the sense it's one-dimensional. When demon you can play with. You can have a demon with horns, one without. You can bring in the face of this animal or that. You can bring some aspect of a disease. You can bring something else. You can play with it. You can do hundreds of things. So I think the most interesting part of this visual tradition, perhaps also a tradition, is the portrayal of demons. And in that comes Ravana. So I'm coming back, going around, making a very ugly demonic character. You are making a beautiful character with 10 heads and 20 arms. So you have a fantastic challenge. You have this kind of a wonderful character in front. You want to devise it. How would you devise it? And I think what they have devised is quite simple. And I think Sahib Din takes the cake. He is great. One that you showed was by Sahib. Yesterday, what Paula showed, the first one, the siege of Lanka, that one was that. And if you were to, I mean, she showed you detail also, there are 5 heads above the other thing. So you have head by the head, and 4 on one side, 5 on the other, and 1 in the middle. And the arms grow sort of as if integrally, naturally, sprout out. So at one point of time it will become like a fan. At one point of time it will become like some kind of a big wing. At times, you can imagine the kind of metaphors that it would suggest. Hundreds of types of, and there that Ravan appears, so many times. Now that's one word that she used is called continuous narration. Sometimes it's called simultaneous narration, sometimes it's called, or simultaneous progression. That is, within a frame, you have the image repeated. All other characters remain. Actually, it's an older tradition. If you are familiar with Ajanta, I will explain it to you that there is on the cave 2, Mahajanak Jatak. And in the Mahajanak Jatak, the story is that he is in the palace, then he leaves the palace, he goes out of town, then he goes to the etc., etc. Now the entire panorama has number of characters. But in which, in one part you have Mahajanak in his palace with his queen. Just next to that there is another zone in which Mahajanak is leaving the palace. In the third, Mahajanak has gone somewhere. In the fourth. As you walk, you are literally walking with the story. Because Mahajanak in a way is leading you. It is with Mahajanak that you move. Now, in a painting, which is what I call a photo picture, let me first tell you that Mughal painting is like a modern book. It's vertical. It's about slightly bigger than the size of this thing, but it is vertical. I will not go into the details of it, but that's how it is. The Rajasthani painting, and particularly the Ramayana that we are going to deal with, goes back to the times when paintings were made on palm leaf. Now, palm leaf cannot be cut in this vertical manner. If you cut it, it can only be cut in the horizontal because that gives you the largest area, both to write and paint. And what was done on the palm leaf was to, put them together, and there was a string attached to it on 2 sides. On one edge, about half an inch inside, you will have a hole. So on both sides you would have a hole, and there would be a string on which the palm leaf was, let us say, put inside. And you have to lift it and put it on the other side. Am I being clear? You have to lift it like, it's not like opening a page like this, but like, so the picture or the writing is upside down, on one side. So that when you open it, it's correct, for you to read. So the page had to. Now what is interesting is that even though palm leaf was not used and paper was used, the tradition of this kind of a looking at images continued. And even when there was no string to it, the horizontal format continued. Now horizontal format is quite different. As artists would realize that when you work with the horizontal format, you have to work with devices quite different than the kind of devices that you would have with the vertical format. So how would you do? There is also this kind of idea of progression. And the progression is very interesting in the sense that reading of image is sometimes from left to right, sometimes from right to left. In many cases when the language is written from left to right, there is a direction. But when the language is from right to left, when Persian, then it's different. But most paintings in India are done with language is written from left to right. So what is interesting in that you perhaps make zones and you have a kind of a rectangular format. Within the rectangular format you make your own zones and in which you have your character moving. So if you have continuous narration, you have your character somewhere at one point, then he moves to the other and then he goes and he may even go out. What is most fascinating about Sahibdin is that he breaks the boundaries. There are two things that happen. One is that with continuous narration, you have a different sense of time. Painting also deals with time because you have the character moving from this episode to that episode. So you have time incorporated within that. And hence the frame is what? It doesn't bind it. If there is an area of a margin, it doesn't bind it. It goes beyond that. Because within the frame, you have time being enacted at multiple levels. The second thing is that you have the border, and perhaps somebody like Sahibdin found it necessary to break those things. So the army of Ram and army of Ravan spill out and go over the borders. I think it's something quite fantastic. These are the things which have happened. But there are a few other things which I will talk to you when I look at, when I show you the painting. I have lots of paintings, so be patient. You have. What I was trying to say, besides this, was that if there were these kind of interpolations, the Jain monk writing the text, sort of quote-unquote Muslim painter manning the whole manuscript, painted for the Mewar court, which was in some way in an ambivalent relationship with the Mughal court. So, would adopt only the horizontal format as against the Mughal vertical, because that would hark back to its own earlier tradition. And also the kind of, let us say, the image that you make. You make your Ram and your Ravan in a particular. Now, let me explain to you that Ram and Ravan may not remain the same in the hands of several artists. They change. What is interesting is that the 14 years of exile should also bring some change in the character. Often you find that there is a response to that and sometimes that has been excluded. But you do find in some cases that Lakshman has got a little bit of a beard and something else through. So some painter would think that it would be worth bringing in those elements, but others would in general would think. So it is not something, because we are looking at the whole thing today, we do not know how they looked at it, whether they looked at all the 500 pictures. Because all 500 pictures could not have been displayed at the same time. You could have only seen them one after the other. I was lucky 2 years ago in England, the British Museum organized an exhibition called Ramayana. And they, out of their 400 pictures, they brought quite a number. And they were all on display. They enacted the whole of Ramayana. Well, that is one thing. Shall I speak about other things now, or shall I show you pictures now?
Pictures.
Pictures?
Yes, yes.
Sorry.
One last cover videos.
Yeah, have a
Be the best. Yes, one copy is necessary.
And think of it, and if you have questions, please ask. Go ahead. Let's have an interactive session.
Yes.
Is that a glass cover?
Bit warm, huh?
Specs. Oh, black. Bitten and
It's
chewed.
wonderful to hear you. I now understand what a great teacher you are. So you are making us see things without showing us the image. It's a great thing to do.
Nothing hidden. No, don't hide it.
The glass cover.
So everything projects. There's no recession. So that it comes to you. So each image in a way comes to the viewer. Whether viewer is ready for it or not, the image jumps out of it so that you go close to it. And in that sense the image guides you. In Ajanta, actually the story is enacted by them. Most interesting, none of them would look at it. None of them look out of the window. No character ever looks out. And yet, they guide you. This is another factor. Something which performing arts, I don't know how would you look at it. They are in with themselves. Even with the portraiture, you know, the portraiture, the frontal portraiture is rare.
Yes.
Always the portraiture is from the side.
Now, in the Parv tradition in Rajasthan,
Yeah.
Babaji ki Parv, all of them work with this sideways look. The demons are the only ones, some demonic characters look frontally.
Well, that is the case with many such traditions. For instance, in the Jain portraits, Kalpasutra or what is the other one? The story of the man, Kalakacharya Katha. There is a character of what they call Shahi King, that is the Sultan, because Kalakacharya goes to Delhi Sultan. All other characters are from profile except the Sultan. Sultan is shown all from 3/4.
Tell us something.
There is a distinction which is made, specific distinction.
Just the eye itself, the painting of the eye in Mughal miniatures. There is sometimes it's almost bulbous. It comes out, it protrudes a little bit, you know. And how do they, to tie with what you were saying, this moving image, you know, the fact that the eye is not necessarily fixed on one thing.
3 times, it may appear 5 times, not so many other times.
But Gulam, I want to ask a question. In film, there is something called mise en scène. Each frame, there are so many things involved in that one frame, you know, which they call mise en scène. And the eye, how does it capture that whole thing?
No, I don't get
You know, in film, it is frame by frame. Isn't it? You look at frame by frame. It's almost like portraits put in. Only thing is they are moving portraits. That's all.
Yeah.
Isn't it? The principle is moving portraits with frames in. But you know, you are always told the mise en scène, what you put inside a frame, is very important. There would be some small detail. If you miss, you have missed some vital point. So these two eyes, how would in that brief second capture what is to be captured? It's not just one person or one, what I'm talking about is not just one person or one figure or anything, even smallest details in that, within that frame, because it affects the whole story or the storyline or narration or whatever it is. So people always talk that each frame you have to look at it, but the time given for you to look at that frame is so limited because it moves like that.
But may I
So,
respond to that?
how
That
do
is
you-
exactly, it's a different notion of time. There's a simultaneity here. One frame captures so many moments of time, and you can keep looking at it, past, present, future. While in the film, it's real time. You know, it's one after the other. It's not simultaneous as it is in this. It's time
I will
space.
show you some image and then perhaps we can go back to that if you like to repeat that thing. Some of the images in which there is continuous narration and see how. Actually, one image which I don't have, I just remember since you are talking about, but there are other images. But one image of Ramayana from Sahiddin's project was of Parshuram. Parshuram also brings a bow, which is Vishnu's bow, which also Ram lifts. Now, in that, very interestingly, Parshuram, besides Ram, is shown 3 times. Ram is shown, you see, it so happens that when Ram is challenged and he accepts the challenge, Parshuram is unhappy and he becomes larger, his body. And then he gets becoming larger and larger. So there is a third image of Parshuram, which is 3 times the image of, which is there in the same area. But that is how it is. But I will show you another one in which Ram lifts the bow at the Janaka's court. So there perhaps, but it doesn't show you that kind of, but it does show progression. No. Okay. So we are in a way going through Ramayana again, so in beginning with Ayodhya. I think we could put off the lights. It would be better because is the white too sharp here or is it okay?
It's fine. This is a free light from the back. I just
Clothing of I'm showing you this image especially because it is an image of Ramayana. It may appear to many as a court scene with Akbar seated in the middle.
Yeah.
It's almost unmistakable for many of us, who would look at this and would say that, well, yeah, here is the emperor and then there are these women, Actually, it is Dasharath. And with his sons and other maid servants, etc. So, you have the overlap right there. So it is, in a way, evolved from the court of Akbar. As you can see, that there is that kind of a connection which is made here. Now, this is what fascinates me. This is another story. In the Ramayana, there is the story of Rishyashrunga. Does everybody know it? Or
Yeah.
I'll tell you briefly. It is the story which I think Sumantra tells Dasharath, in which he quotes Sanat Kumar, saying that there was this great Rishyashrunga, son of Vibhandak. And Rishyashrunga had conducted such penance and such austerities that he is unique. Now the story is that Dasharath wanted offspring, and Sumantra tells this story that if Rishyashrunga comes here and conducts a yagna for you, you will beget this male heir. So, as the story goes, that Rishyashrunga lives in a forest, hermitage with his father, who has kept him in the, whatever you call it, in isolation, that he had no idea of the world beyond the forest that he lived in. And he had never encountered the world beyond, so what outside. Now the story is that he has to, and he was celibate, that he had a brahmacharya, and if he gets married, now how would you get this celibate rishi to get married? So the story goes that because he was supposed to marry daughter of Romapad, Romapad's daughter called Shanta.
Ankaraj.
So I think it is Romapad who sends
Both are available.
There is no rain.
beautiful courtesans
There is no rain in
go and
Ankaraj.
lure Rishyashrunga. So this is where he encounters these beauties, and they eventually seduce him, and they take him to the city, And there is a terrific scene here. Oh, what
One
happened?
question is it the painting where the trees are painted by somebody else and the figures are painted by
Shall I go
somebody
back?
else?
Yeah.
Rishi Sringa is now, after having married, etc., comes to, because Dashratha invites him, and he calls him, and he comes to Ayodhya. So this is the scene where he is about to come to the city.
And
This is in Pahadi, in Kangra.
And he's naked?
But
No, he's wearing a langot. Is he wearing a langot?
No.
well, you want to see it?
Yeah.
In the zoom, no.
He is wearing a
There
langot.
he is standing,
Yeah.
he is most correct with his wife and others who are bringing him there.
Yeah.
And this is the city of
It's
Ayodhya.
not just a langur, it has got a shoulder cloth.
And a shoulder cloth, yeah.
And here, in a proper Ramayana folio, this is the kind of folio painted at the Mughal court. And here you have Dashratha at the top, if you with the red scarf, and Rishi Sringa is on his right. Rishi Sringa is leaving after having conducted the yagna, etc. And it's very interesting, these women are always shown. Somehow or other, in the case of Rishi Sringa, these ladies who had enticed him appeared somewhere or other, and they were the courtesans. Now, this is our Mewar set. This is Sahibins, and you have the 4 sons born. So you have the birth, the story of the birth. So it's written there, and that is how our Ayodhya story would begin.
You showed this picture.
Now, here also the mothers and children are shown, and there is a kind of a celebration outside. So, and Dashratha is giving gifts to people on the right. But this fascinates me. This is another, that when Ram was young, he was still an adolescent even when he was, not as adolescent, but what was he? He was 15 or 16 when he was exiled. But before that, Vishwamitra comes, and he then wants him to go to the forest and kill the demons. And Dasharatha objects to it. He said that, my tender little boy, why do you take him away? So Vishwamitra said, no, he is a great hero. Besides, I have the great weapons, so he has divine weapons. And these divine weapons are offered to him. And I am quite fascinated. I don't know who are the scholars of Ramayana, but if we were to talk about it. When was the Brahmastra given? Was Brahmastra part of that weaponry that brought? But when Ram accosted Taraka and others, he uses these weapons. So here is another Mughal portrayal, but this seems to be a bit odd because there are all the other characters. So it is kind of allegorical rather than real. But and Vishwamitra is, I don't know whether it is somebody who accompanied Vishwamitra, or that he himself is portrayed with a little turban and a white, and then he is carrying those. And all the gods in the heavens are looking at this. So the first part is that he goes with Vishwamitra and he crosses the river. This is not Kevat, this is early, prior to that, the first time, before he gets married. And this is in Gulam, and you have this fantastic portrayal of the beautiful river and these, crossing there. What happens here is in such paintings where there is a diagonal kind of a device used, and the river literally flows out of the borders towards you, towards the viewer. So you are immersed into it. So in that sense, if people ask questions about that, in realistic painting, you have a point from which you are looking at the image. How do you enter these images? Here the image allows you to. The image actually flows out. And so the viewer is immersed into it, and viewer can also be part of it. Well, this is the first where, what is it? It is Parshuram, who brings the bow of Vishnu. And see the narration. In the first, he is lifting or bending it, and in the second, he is actually stretching. And gods are in the celestial sphere who are all lording. And then the Taraka. Taraka or Taraka? Taraka, whichever. Differently pronounced. This is again in Mewar, and well, this is the portrait of Taraka in the Mughal set. So you have Ram and Lakshmana, and you have this Taraka. What kind of a demonic image it is? Often there are descriptions of demons with elephant ears and nose like something, some animal like the feet have this kind of talons and whatnot.
Here is the scheme.
So this is the Farsi script over there, and so this is the Mughal set, and there is always the portrayal of the living world. The Mughal painters who saw the world with their own, during their campaigns or even otherwise, were encouraged to bring in the world they know. So they bring in the animals, the birds.
That's that's breast. It's a breast.
Yeah, breast. Yes. Well, this is Tataka in the Mattancherry Palace in Kerala. And here you have a Ram. Most interestingly, in the southern, particularly in the Kerala murals, you have characters with beards, long beards, which you don't find in the northern Indian tradition. They are all clean shaven, most of them.
That's even now. Malayali Indian.
Well, this is at the court of Jan. That is Mewar again. And he breaks the bow. Now you see that there are how many actions? 5 actions are here. That one where he picks up the bow, or the first one when he enters, the second he picks up, third I think he is still standing, the fourth he is bending it, and the fifth he is stretching it, and then he breaks it and it's falling down. So you have a kind of whole sort of sequence of time. The whole thing happening right in front of you. They are watching that kind of a phenomenon, taking place in front of their eyes.
Snake?
This is another Mewar, where again Ram lifts, then stretches it and breaks it.
There's also the counter where they're bringing the bow. Like all
Yeah,
these
they're
men are
bringing
bringing
the
the
bow.
bow and this one man breaks it.
Well, that one, previous one was perhaps painted by another anonymous painter, but this one is painted by Manohar. Manohar was a companion of Sahitya. So this particular kind of painting that you see has a mark of Manohar. Now it is about the wedding. So the 2 fathers meet. I don't know whether in the story whether they ever meet. Do they?
They do.
So this is the scene of the fathers meeting, and this one is from Kullu. This is again in the Punjab Hills, in a region called Kullu, and it is known as Shangri Ramayana because I think it is the name of the collection and generally known as the Shangri Ramayana.
Where is it now?
In the Punjab Hills. This is another image of it's the next step, the story in which Janaka doesn't go himself, but Janaka sends his brother. So that is the portrayal here. Now this is in Gulam where the wedding ceremonies are taking place. It's very interesting, in fact unusual that the night scene is shown.
Yeah, the shadow.
Usually in even Pahadi painting, the night scenes are all moonlit. So this is a slightly later period when the dark, where some kind of influence of kind of realism, has entered in, and you have this happening in the dark.
In fact, rather than celebratory, it looks a little grim and
Well, it may look as now this is in Rajasthan, the wedding. So it's a typical Rajasthani wedding. And you can see this, the clay pots are sort of, put upon each other, and there is a kind of a mandap which is made, and all four brothers, and with Vishwamitra, I suppose, and you have the marriage ceremony taking place.
Vasishta and Vishwamitra.
Vasishta and Vishwamitra, both, yes, that's true. Well, then after the marriage, like in Rajasthan, a common ceremony is to go and they say that touch the feet of your parents, particularly mothers. So here all four of them go to mothers, and there is this woman in the middle is doing that what I don't know what you call it. So she is doing that, and then all these four couples are in their bed chambers.
Yes.
On the right. This is a detail of that. So beautiful that I thought I'll show you a detail of it.
Is there a
The
Krishna
way they
sculpture?
bend, the way they go toward them, the couples, and how these mothers come forward. If you want to read,
Is there
you
a
can
sculpture
read
there?
about Kaushalya, about Kaikeyi, and about that, but there is a lot of food for thought.
They are worshipping a sculpture idol.
Yeah, there is an idol there, which is perhaps a
Look like-
simple idol, but doesn't say very clearly what
It's like Krishna from here. I don't know.
Can't
How.
be Krishna, no, because
In the zoom, it seems like.
Can't be Krishna.
now this is Andhra Ramayana, and in this on the upper register you have Ram and Sita in their bed chamber, and you have Dashratha, which is assembly, court assembly. As I was telling you that often in many of the southern portrayals you have bearded characters, which you don't find in the northern tradition.
was that
No,
Kalamkari?
sorry.
Was that Kalamkari style? Or?
No, it's a painting. It's a painting. There is a whole set of Ramayana. It's known as Andhra Ramayana. It's, I think, 18th century. It's in the Jagdish Mittal collection. Now, this is people of Ayodhya are preparing for the coronation of Ram. So they are celebrating, they are decorating their shops, or they are taking sort of kind of vantage positions when the procession would pass through the street. Now, this is the event in which Ram is now commanded by Kaikeyi because Dashrath is unable to tell Ram. So on the left at the bottom, Kaikeyi is telling Ram and Lakshmana about exile. And there is Dashratha above, whose head is bent on the left. And then when they go and meet Kaushalya on the right, both of them, Kaushalya is so distraught, she falls down. As you can see, Kaushalya is in white over there. Then first instance in which they meet, then they go inside, and then and she falls down. Well, this is the exiles, and Dashrath literally breaks down when the exiles are preparing to leave. What fascinated me here, and also Nilima, when she saw this thing, is the portrayal of Dashrath. I have not seen anywhere this kind of a portrayal, emotional portrayal of Dashrath. In multiple situations, again in a same event, that he breaks down, he falls, he cries, he goes after them. There are something like 13 pictures of that. I've got 3 or 4 here. And that, you can see Dashrath here, how he is literally falling down.
Where is this picture today?
Right
Sorry?
at the right side top.
This is in the British Library. Is that what you asked?
You have this full thing in a book. In your
This is the Sahibdin set. This is the Ramayana, which is in the British Museum. Library, British Library. No, here Dashrath narrates the story of Shravan. The kind of boon that he had given to Kaikeyi. So he narrates the story of Shravan and his parents and how he cremates them. So that is where the old couple is over there, then he brings them, he carries them. Can you see that? And then he brings them, puts them on the path. And here all 3 of them on this side.
The parents look like they are on the pyre.
Yeah, they chose to die.
Yeah. Well, they were old, and someone was carrying them. Now it's very interesting. It must have been Rajasthani tradition, or perhaps other tradition. I don't know. Perhaps in South as well. It's that to show the great affection you take even the people who are, adult on your lap. So here, Dashrath, who is distraught over there, as you can see from the top, on the right, he takes all 3 exiles on his lap.
How did this all go to British Museum?
Now, this is in Gulam, where Dashrath is seated there, and you have the exiles preparing for it, taking off their royal apparels and putting on barks and such things. They are preparing to leave. And on the right, they are actually in a chariot and they are moving. So you have these both actions, events. Before leaving, the exiles give away their possessions, distributing it to the poor and others. So this is where Ram is giving away his possession, including cows and other things. This is another version of the same, where you have Ram, Sita and Lakshmana giving away their possessions.
It's nice. In the earlier one, there are people actually trying on the clothes that they give away.
Right. But look at this portrayal of Dashrath. See how he is, they are about to leave and he is telling them not to go. And he is held by both his queens and others, the women. And he is, I don't know, but at one point, at one level, he is bidding them farewell and because he is not going to see them. And other level, he is asking them to come back. And at third level, he is so held, he is left alone with all his wives. This is yet another portrayal of Dashrath, where when they had left, he literally breaks down, as you see it on the right, and the exiles are leaving. Well, this is Bharat coming back, and if you see the top on the front, on the left, he goes to meet his mother, Kaikeyi, Bharat and Shatrugna. And when he hears about the exiles, he breaks down on the left. And then he, at the bottom, then he, I think he tells his mother, he talks to his mother and he's very angry.
He's kicking her?
His mother.
He's kicking her.
On the right is Shatrugna punishing Manthara at the bottom. But Bharata tells him not to punish her. So this is the story of Bharata. Then Dasharatha dies. This is the story of death of Dasharatha. I think there is something quite remarkable about this whole thing. I almost feel like a performing artist, that there is a whole sequence of Dasharatha going through so many layers of emotion and how he is left alone and dies. And here is Dasharatha's cremation. They bring the body and they perform the last rite over there. But my favorite picture is here. This is in Gulam. There is actual funeral of Dasharatha. And you have a whole city participating in it. You know, literally the city empties out. And you can see the funeral over there, on the top left, with all the milling crowds. And you have them all being they are all carrying each other. And right at the bottom near the river bank, there is a cremation that is taking place. Yeah. And if you were to see carefully, I don't have that many details of it, but each character is quite clearly portrayed as an individual character. And they are all mourners. So none of them have any headgear or any such thing. Yeah. And many of them are shaven. And they are all, the whole city literally pours out.
It's also the wall that cuts.
There is a wall of the. It could be one of the forts in the Kangra Hills. Well, now we have the exile. Well, when they go to the forest, the townsfolk follow, and they continue to be with them. So I think first when they rest somewhere, they are all townsfolk are around, and Ram and Sita on the right, as you can see, they are lying, sleeping on that. And here, I think at one point they decide that if they don't leave without telling, that is the only way to escape them was to just disappear. So they ran away. That is shown on the left.
I find here there's no kind of gravity in the movement of the image. There's sideways, there's sort of tera, like the
but what is interesting here is the kind of a scattering of the characters. It's somehow sort of the way in which everything has been thrown in this direction to that direction, and sort of look at this diagonally placed chariot and the two horses over there, and then
all the Mewari paintings have Marwari horses.
No, Mewari, because they would not be able to do such a thing, because it would be a sacrilege if they were able to do such a thing. No, it would be Mewar of that time, of the 17th century, middle of 17th century. This is the exiles crossing Yamuna and then going across. And I don't know, Kevat doesn't appear here. This is another very beautiful Boulaye painting where they are in the forest and how they are living the life of exiles. They are in three places, the left, in the middle, and right at the top.
All three are them only.
Sorry?
All three are them only.
Yeah, they are all three. And here they go to visit, they go to an ashram of This is also the same Shangri Ramayana that I mentioned in the Punjabis from that set.
Where are that Shangri Ramayana pictures? Where are they?
Sorry?
Where are the
Paintings are dispersed in different collections.
In India or abroad?
Mostly in India. This is again Ram converses with hermits, and there he goes over there. If you want to know the kind of naturalism that appeared in Pahari painting, the story is that after Jahangir conquered the hills, most in the princes of the Pahari courts were taken to Mughal court for education. That means they were actually held at ransom. And then they were trained in Mughal etiquette. And many of them who came back brought back with them some Mughal ideas and perhaps even aspects of Mughal painting, or brought back with them even Mughal painting, which influenced the Pahari painting and then brought in a kind of a naturalism that was incorporated in later Pahari. Well, this is a part of what is called Chitrakati. This is in Maharashtra. And you have these pictures, images which are independent, each one, each a page. And you have story being told, and this picture shown. So you have on top, it is Ram, Sita, and Lakshman in the hermitage, as you saw the previous one. And there is the other sequence at the bottom. We'll come to that. Well, this is the exiles building a kind of a hut, their cottage. So Ram, Sita, Lakshman over there, and there all three of them come, and here they are building. This is the Sahib bin Ramayana. This is the detail of the same.
Ram is bigger than the building.
This is
So you have to read it from the left to the right or right to the left?
usually from left to the right. But you see the stories, I don't know how do you read them, they are simultaneous. Like Lakshmana is hunting the deer over there. He has already killed one and he is going after the other. And here is Ram, Sita and Lakshmana or Sita, they are eating. They have these leaf plates. And there Sita is inside perhaps cooking or this.
No, this painting is she feeds Ram and Lakshman,
Yes,
and then she eats her food in the hut.
Are they vegetarian or no?
Offering them.
Are they vegetarian?
But here Lakshmana is doing something, I don't know what it is.
Inside the hut. Kebab.
Can some kebab banana?
Yeah.
So, kebab is that one.
Yes.
Now this I think is, this is the Mughal image, and I think this is Daswant, the painter I mentioned, the one who was epileptic. It's quite unusual the way gold is used on the ground and also on the city, and Ram and Sita in the forest with all.
Also the canopy like the ceiling on top.
Yeah.
It's very
Well, here there is a story, I think people would know about a crow pecks at Sita's breast, and then Ram shoots the bird over there. So there are multiple sequences shown over there. And here it is, well, Bharat comes with the widows of Dashrath to meet Ram in the forest. So there he is reaching over there and meeting him. And at the bottom they are all exchanging sort of greetings. This is an interesting Mughal painting. And there is a long inscription alongside. In this Lakshmana over there, on top if you are, it's partially effaced, and there is Ram on the left, Lakshmana standing. This is where Lakshmana suspects that Bharat has come with an army to attack them. And this is what is, so the arm, Bharat and entourage is at the bottom, and Ram and Lakshmana are at the top. Now here they come to meet, both of them, and Bharat begs Ram to return, but eventually Ram performs the funerary rites of his father at the bottom on the right, with Bharat and Lakshmana.
His figure seems larger.
Sorry?
In grief, of Ram, the figure of Ram, like sort of.
Well, it's because it's dark and then set against the bright color over there, so it does look nice the illusion. Now this is another killing of this demon Maharaksha. This is the Mughal folio. So you have another demon and fallen upside down. This is yet another Mughal folio where Ram and Lakshmana are confronting Marich and Subha. That's quite interesting. Many of the demonic characters are grotesque. They are a bit comic.
Yeah.
They are sort of made to look comic. So they are in a way endearing at one level. They are not that evil, Well, this is Kulu, again Ram. This is the detail. I'm going to show you a picture of the full picture later. But well, this is a temple just a few kilometers away from Baroda. It's called Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, in a place called Chandur, where there are Ramayana murals all over the dome, inside the dome. You have the Surparkha sequence here and other sequences at the bottom in multiple registers. And the names of the characters are written alongside the portraits. Well, so here is Ram following Marich, the golden deer, and you have the Persian text over there. This is another Pahari version, where Ram is shown in kind of a tribal costume. He has got the leaf dress. And he is after the deer. And this is again in a Pahari painting where Surparkha sort of bidding Ravan, sort of describing the beauty of Sita and asking him to instigate Ravan to abduct her. And here she comes, and Lakshmana, Ram and Sita are inside the cottage. Lakshmana cuts off her knife, and then her own form, she reveals her form as she is shown flying about. This is again from Bule. This is yet another portrayal of Surparkha and Lakshmana, and this is in Kavya.
Who is hiding on that hilltop?
On the mountain, yeah.
Where?
That's not running away, that's a
That
original
is
form.
difficult to say, but Ram and Sita are here in the cottage.
But that appears like Surparkha
Yes,
going
it's
away.
Surparkha.
On the top?
Yeah.
But there is something else happening there in the bird.
On the other side, yeah.
Another story, another aspect which is but well, this is again Chitrapati, where you have Ravana coming first in his own form, and then he is assuming the guise of a sadhu, and there he comes to abduct Sita. And there, now he has picked her up. This is again in Padi, perhaps Kangra, and there he is taking her away, while Ram is shooting Manish over there, as you can see on the left.
And Lakshmana has gone
searching.
for
Lakshmana. And there he comes in a different form. See how he is dressed. Ravana has become a kind of an emaciated little beggar. Can you see that? With Sita. And then he assumes his own form and carries her on a chariot. Chariot manned by donkeys. This is yet another, in the progression. And you have Jatayu fighting Ravana, and then he kills Jatayu. But it's quite fantastic the way in which how Jatayu had destroyed his wrath No, his chariot.
Dropping
Broken to bits, literally.
ornaments.
And then Ravana flies off.
Right side.
Very interestingly here, even the monkeys are
Yeah. And the parcel that she's dropping.
Sita's ornaments.
She's throwing something.
Sita's jewels.
She's throwing her jewelry.
So that's Hanuman and Sugriva.
And beautiful Jatayu, sort of broken and cut down.
They are in exile, no?
And here you have Ravana with multiple arms and carrying Sita.
He's there. Jata is actually there in the earlier painting which you showed us.
The one.
Earlier painting?
Yeah, in the left side.
Yeah.
No, in the
that previous one might be Jatayu. Yes, you are, but that's a different school altogether. It's portrayed differently. Now here he is carrying again Chitrakati on his shoulders. Oh, sorry.
Is she folded up?
And here, this is the most beautiful part of Ramayana. I love. I mean, in the original Ramayana, Ram pines for Sita, and how he describes nature. You know, he talks about the entire environment and how he is totally forlorn. You know, he is totally lost. And there is this image. He is describing the beautiful nature around him, surrounded by this. To Lakshmana here.
Is that Lakshmana? Yeah.
This is another interesting painting. This is a Mughal in which Ram actually is angry at Lakshmana for having left Sita alone. And there is a whole text that goes with this painting. And so there is that dialogue, you know, which is connected.
Is there a figure in that?
Then there is Kishkinda, and here you see, this is again the same Shangri Ramayana, and you have Jatayu. Now here is the real confrontation between the two. He has already destroyed his horse and chariot, and Ravana is about to attack him. Well, the same sequence in Chitrakati. Ravana is carrying her. It is like one of the performing traditions, no, where you have a character carrying on the shoulder. You have a box or something like that. This is the Andhra Ramayana, and there Ravana has carried Jatayu over there, and he goes further over there. Well, this is Sugriv challenges Bali, and you have Sugriv as king over there with, I think, white Tara, and you have Ram and Lakshmana on the right. This is from the Sahibdin set, but apparently this is not painted by Sahibdin, but there is another group of artists who have done that. This is the fight of Ali and Sugriv in Chitrakati. Here is fight of Ali and Sugriv shown twice, and Ram shooting an arrow over there, and Bali falling there. Well, this is also the story of Bali, and with the 7 palms. And this is the previous story that Sugriv narrates about Dundubi, isn't it? That buffalo demon whom Bali had killed. So he described the might of Bali before Ram takes on him.
And the 7 trees are there also.
And the 7 palms. And here Bali falls. And you have Ram, Hanuman, Sugriv, others watching him. I am reminded of Manur Chakyarya, the great performer who performed the death of Bali. Bali was, if I am not mistaken, and it was absolutely fantastic. You know, he had his Bali dying for almost half an hour. And chiding Ram, he said, the great warrior, the Veera that you are, why didn't you confront me? Why did you have to shoot me through the 7 palms? That story. But this is the Jodhpur set in which there is a Kishkinda and then crowning of Sugriva. And here is also Bali dying of the same, the previous text, that is the Sahibdin Mewad Ramayana. This is another Mewad Ramayana, but this is, it's very interesting that while Sugriva has sent his emissaries all over to find the whereabouts of Sita, they are both sitting and discussing the events, and Sugriva offers him betel, pan.
Why their headgear is like Japanese?
Well, they are sort of paraffina in a relaxed mode, whatever. That's quite interesting.
They're like harmless.
And here you have Sugriva brings the ornaments that Sita has dropped. And here Ram gives his ring to Hanuman at the bottom, while Sugriva has sent his emissaries all over. I think this is another terrific painting. Half the monkeys are flying in all directions. And they are all, three of them are in wilderness. And this is Hanuman pierces through the ears of this demon Surasa. It goes through the head and comes out of her ear. There is another portrayal of the same. Here Hanuman is shown about 3 to 4 times. And it goes through her ears and comes out. That was the Andhra Ramayana. And here Hanuman is jumping the ocean. Another portrait of Hanuman recrossing the ocean. And here Hanuman is caught, arrested and brought to Ravan, and then his tail has been, they put these clothes around, and then they pour, I think it's kerosene or whatever is being poured for boiling it.
Oil.
Yeah, there's some black liquid is on Hanuman.
This is the double
And
decker.
Vibhishana is pleading for him.
Did he actually cry?
Sorry?
Does he have tears, Vibhishana?
Vibhishana is but pleading that he is only an emissary and he should be allowed to go. This is another, oh sorry, what happened?
Yes.
Shall I go back?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this is decree or whatever it is, but that kind of thing, is being portrayed here. This is the detail of what Pala had shown yesterday, and the three these Rakshasis who are guarding Sita. I think this is one of the most beautiful portraits of Sita. Well, here it is interesting in the Andhra Ramayana. Ravan goes to Sita on the top register. In the middle register, Sita is trying to commit suicide by tying her braids with the tree. And then Hanuman comes and gives her the ring at the bottom. This is another portrayal of Hanuman presenting the ring to Sita. Ravan is sending them about there, and they are here, and then they are being discovered there. This is the detail of the same. And you can see the kind of jharoka. You can see Ravan sitting at the top of the palace, almost in a kind of suggesting the Mughal practice of the kings coming out in the jharoka. This is the detail of the same. And then all other characters are shown. And this is, this should have been earlier. Here, Vibhishana is pointing out that those two monkeys are not monkeys. They are demons. That is English. And then this is another, that same landscape is being portrayed differently. And here I think it is Shardula, another spy of Ravan who had come there, who is also being discovered, but Ram sort of allows him to go. And see Ravan here in the palace, another beautiful, handsome portrait of the beautiful and all his demons. And each demon, each character, if you were to look at carefully, is delineated as an individual character. Well, here Ram sends Angad to Ravan to have a dialogue to sort of bring reason in, and so he flies off, and there he goes, and there he is with Ravan over there, and the demons are.
This seems like a painting in progress.
Paintings are unfinished, some of them are unfinished. If you want to know more about it, these paintings are believed to be the earliest set of paintings in the Punjab Hills.
Wow.
And they are attributed to one of the greatest artists whose work we otherwise do not know, called Pandit Sev, whose elder son Manku and younger son Nayansu are the great painters, whose works we know. But this, according to some scholars, is the work of the father, Pandit Sev. So here you see Angad, and you have another portrait of Ravan with Angad. Well, then again we are back to Sahib. It's quite likely that all this Yuddha Kand, the entire Yuddha Kand, is painted by Sahibuddin himself, personally. And here you have, here also Angad is sent. As you can see, Angad is caught by the, all these demons over there and brought to Ravan. Now, here is another challenge. Paula, it is the hand. And the hand are in action. So they are fan out, in multiple directions. So it becomes so animated. There is an action there. Each hand doing something. And it's like Ravan, at two levels, his heads are at two levels, but his hands are sort of at multiple levels. Then you have yet another. You have now the monkey army has literally sort of taken, they are around the fort. The architecture is visible only in this kind of form. It's not detailed, but you have all these little zones in which Ravan is shown. Ravan is above there, and there in the middle also. And then you have the golden wall, and you have Ram and the monkeys on the side. Well, this is gone. This is from the Siege of Lanka series, where they are preparing a sortie. And here are the people. This is see, each one has a different expression. Each one is also shown as a character, individual. I think he had a ball, he enjoyed painting the demons. Perhaps he enjoyed painting demons more than he enjoyed painting others. Painting demons and even painting Ram. Well, this is another interesting thing. This is another set of painting in another place, in a place called Savar in Rajasthan, where you have Vibhishan and Ram talking to each other. And this is again the Siege of Lanka series, in which the Ravan is preparing for war, the army. And there again you can see all this army of demons. And then you have the war. This is, I think, Paula showed this one. This is Sahib. There is actual siege now. They have attacked the thing. And this is what I was saying, that the barriers are broken. Now you have even the borders, are overflowing with imagery. It literally breaks out of everything. They go right at the top. And this is yet another portrayal of the Siege of Lanka. You have Ram and Ravan. Here Ram and Lakshman at the bottom. And you have the army over there in the Lanka.
Where is Ravan in the previous picture?
Sorry?
In the previous picture?
Yeah.
Where is Ravan in this picture?
He's inside.
The palace is shown, but I don't know whether Ravan is visible here. But there is a burning of Lanka, and all these, the monkeys have already gone there, and the battle is raging over there. You can see one carrying a demon and throwing him. It's it's sort of full of action. So much action in that, And here you have Indrajit. Indrajit is performing yagna, so there he is about performing the and then when there was a kind of a sense of despair in the camp of Ravan, and then Indrajit goes to the battle invisibly and begins to attack. But here he is shown there, over there on top. He is sort of flying. And all the monkey. And Lakshman and Ram are both, as you can see on the left, they are fallen. And here, Lakshmana is shown wounded. And Ravan and Hanuman is attacking Ravan. Ravan is shown together on the chariot twice, where he is attacked and he is falling. So, and here you have Lakshmana, being taken by the monkeys, and then he is lying down over there. And there, in this one also, the Lakshmana is fallen, and you have Ravan on the chariot coming down. No, not on the. He is on the chariot. Yes, and then there is a fallen Lakshmana, and then you have Ravan's army. Yeah, this is an interesting image. I came to know through painting that Vibhishana had conducted a kind of a mission of sending out birds in different directions in Lanka to know the disposition of Ravan's army. And he provides this information to Ravana. So that is how they attack from different sides. Actually, there is a description in Ramayana about which gate has been attacked, from which side, who goes from which gate. So this is about that Vibhishana. There is Ravana inside over there. Well, this is another site. As I showed you Kashi Vishwanath Mandir near Baroda in a place called Chandod earlier, that mural in the temple. Here is another, but this is not a temple. This is what they call Chhatri. It's a kind of, in Rajasthan, there are these funerary structures. So the site of the cremation of some royal figure or so, they build a Chhatri, and in this place called Parshurampura in Shekhavati, there is a fantastic Ramayana portrait, and you can see all these, the monkeys, and look at this, the big demon being sort of surrounded and sort of attacked by monkeys. It's all over, on all sides of the dome. Well, this is, there is the story of that Garuda comes down and to heal wounds of the warriors. And this is a Mohal painting, very well known, very famous painting in which Hanuman is carrying, for the survival. So he brings the Sanjeevani, he brings, because he could not find the booty, so he carries the mountain, part of the mountain. And there he is again carrying. This is a side in Ramayana in which you can see slightly bearded Hanuman at the top, and he is flying with the peak of the mountain. There he comes down with the peak of the mountain, and then I think the herbs are applied to Lakshmana. Then he goes back to redeposit the peak, and there he comes across all kinds of impediments. There are all types of demons who are preventing him from that. And here you have Ram and Lakshmana sitting. Lakshmana now is cured, and you have Lanka, you have Ravana over there, and you have, this is another in the series where Lakshmana is revived, he's being administered the herbs. Well, this is another interesting thing that Hanuman actually goes and breaks up the yagna that Indrajit had conducted. So he actually lifts a whole tree perhaps and goes and starts, he throws it over there. I will show you another image of a similar kind but of different nature at the end. And there comes Kumbhakara. Kumbhakara has to come because with all these painters gathered there, and particularly with Sahibdin, how could you leave? And I think this is most unique portrait. There are a series of paintings of Kumbhakarna. The whole series is shown. Now Kumbhakarna being woken up. As you know that, there are all kinds of means employed to wake him up. And here when he wakes up, he has to have his food. So he is gorging on a buffalo. And you can see that. So they are bringing food for him. And there he goes to the battle.
Eating the monkeys. Check out those monkeys in his arm.
He is picking up monkeys. But devouring them. Look at Sugriva over there, I think he about to bite off the nose of Kumbhakarna. This is yet another where the monkeys are surrounding. He has already chopped up the head of Ram and Lakshman, both are shooting. And there Kumbhakarna is now Ram's arrows chops him off. His hands and his head finally, and he falls. Well, this is interesting, this is a Mughal variant, but I think this is slightly clumsy variant of the hands and of Ravan. It's a kind of realism, kind of portrayal of their heads, how they are shown in succession. I mean, they are a bit funny, a bit comic, interesting, but it's a different variant. And here is yet another image of the assault on Lanka side. A series of pictures of that, and this is another fierce fight. Ravan is on the chariot, and here is Ram and Lakshmana, and this is the final thing where Ram uses Brahmastra. I was somewhere in some point, when I saw the first picture of Vishwamitra bringing all I somehow had the inkling that perhaps there is, the seed of the story is over there, right at the beginning. It's something to do with weapons and something to do with the animal. I'll come to that a little later about the animal. So here is finally chopping off one by one head of Ravan and how they are flying in different directions, as you can see. Surrounding him, literally, actually even still, they are covering him. In this image, and how his hands are in all directions, are literally trying to sort of hold the heads while Ram is shooting from this point. And there on the right, he is fallen, as you can see. And as he is fallen, he is mourned by his wives over there. Now on the right, he has got one head, but he has got all his arms, and here is Ram, who is now crowning Vibhishana, and also the funerary rites of Ravan are to be conducted. This is the Andhra Ramayana, in which you can see the wives of Ravan mourning over his body, and here is actual cremation at the bottom. Well, there are some images of the fire ordeal, the Agni Pravesh Sita, and this comes from Kulu. This is another one. Well, this is a Mughal example. As you can see here, again like the court painting, Mughal court painting, historic painting, where the king Ram is seated there and Sita is on the pyre. And here is in the Andhra Ramayana, you have again Sita on the, I think this also another beautiful image of fire. Fire and flower are combined in some ways. And here you have another, this is the Mewar portrayal, where you can see the god Agni taking Sita on his lap. As you can see in the middle, right in the center. And Yet another portrait, this is a provincial novel in which one is about a Sita at the bottom and the monkeys are all praying. And there is now return of Ram. This is some school of a place called Raghogad in Rajasthan. He returns to, and this royal procession comes to Ayodhya, and they meet the widows. They are all shown here. Sita is there, and Ram and Lakshmana inside. There they enter. There they are in the chariot. Now I have got some pictures. Just these are mine. This is my hobby horse. I have just picked up some images just to throw some ideas, and to say that such things, such images also figure. They are quite unusual in some ways. So let's see.
Oh.
I think there is no image of motherhood that I have seen anywhere in world art where majesty of motherhood, the majesty, the kind of a, giving birth, that the three women are portrayed here in Mattancherry. You can see Kaushalya, and you can see the other two. And there are two actions. The little baby is coming out of the womb, and here they are placed on the ground. They have held these two maidservants by hand on sides, and then the maidservants are receiving them. I think this is most incredible painting. I don't know whether such paintings could be easily shown, but such paintings are there, and this is the great strength of this tradition. I think it is fantastic. So that is my. In the Mughal Ramayana, which is not yet published, a few pages which are known, you have images like this. There is some kind of a naturalism, but these images of these so huge characters, rising out of the yagna, from the sacrifice, and you have this emergence of what they call Agni Purusha. And with the vessel in his hand, quite likely somebody like Daswant could have portrayed that. And you have another one. This is the messenger who brings a sacrificial fire. The smaller and the larger images in the Mughal Ramayana. Now this is quite subversive. This is in the Kashi Vishwanath Mandir in Chandod near Baroda, where Hanuman goes to the yagna conducted by not just Indradit, but they say Ahiravan and Mahiravan. And then he goes to the yagna and urinates upon it. Can you see that? Have you seen such a representation anywhere? This is right in the middle of a temple, venerated temple. I hope no Bajrang Dal fellows come to know about it. Because it is still there. And you have this disarray of all those when Hanuman goes inside and he throws them all out, and how they are sort of, in agony, they are out in, and this is there. And you have on this side Ram, Sita and Lakshmana, and Hanuman on top of the thing. Well, this is after the battle, when monkeys come back and they go to this Madhuban, that place where there are a lot of trees, and obviously there are a lot of mud here, which means there is a lot of liquor available, and they get drunk. What garden? Where monkeys guarding them, or monkeys come back, and the bears were guarding, so there is a kind of a fight, but it appears to be a mock fight. It looks as if they are both drunk. And these drunken animals, are fighting and embracing each other. This is my most favorite painting, and I think possibly it is by Sahibin. And I mentioned this name before, Vibhandak. You remember? Who is Vibhandak?
Yeah.
Father of Rishyashrunga. Now Rishyashrunga had a horn on his head. You know that? In the representation of Rishi Shringa is shown a horn on his head. So there is an animal kind of a suggestion over there. But there is a story of Vipanga. That he falls in love with a mrugi, that is a dove. And here are 13 sequences in which the kind of a, love of Vibhandak and the mrugi is shown. And you have, if you start from the, I think here we start from the right. Somebody was asking about the direction. No? Suppose if you start from the right at the bottom, he goes to see the mrugi, then she follows him, then they sit down and he has got some food there. And then they both lie down. Then he is embracing her, he has got her on her lap, she is sitting there and he is sort of there, almost like kissing. And then she is playing something and she is going away. There he is sitting next to him. And there they again and perform some kind of a ritual or a puja. And there she is going, and in the last one you can see Vibhandak alone and the mrugi has left. I think this is most unusual, most tender and the most beautiful portrayal of animal and a human being without being at all in any way suggestive of, but there is love in that sense. And well, in the story perhaps she would become a woman and then he would she would be pregnant and then the child that is born has got a horn. This is detail. I am sorry, this image, the colors are not correct. It's a deep maroon background. And this is the last painting, but I would first, before I tell you about it, this is the marriage story. As everybody knows about marriage. Marriage who had the power to become visible and invisible. So he was the golden deer and Ram goes after him. But here I am reminded of the story that A.K. Ramanujan has narrated. And Pala has reproduced his classic essay in which it figures. It's about a couple in which the lady who is more educated and knows Ramayana, whereas the husband is not at all, he's sort of a bit uncouth or whatever. So she bids him to go and listen to Ramayana, where there is a great Kathakar who has come and he is narrating Ramayana. The first day he goes and he comes back and he says that it was, it was salty or something, no, it was something. It was sweet because because he goes to sleep there, he doesn't listen to it. The second day, he goes to sleep and then I think in one of the instances a dog comes and pees in his mouth, so he said it's a bit salty. And on the last day she bids him, she said, now I don't know what you are talking about, I am coming with you. And they both go and they both listen to him. Then he becomes literally involved in the story. And there when the Kathakar is narrating the story, Kathakar says, well then Hanuman was flying, but while flying the ring that he was to deliver falls off his hand and he goes into the netherworld. And Hanuman is distraught, he does not know how to recover that ring. And this man, husband of this woman, listens to this. He says, no Hanuman, don't worry, I am coming. I am going to retrieve the ring and here I am. What Ramanujan says is this, that he entered Ramayana. And that is how you all enter Ramayana. Enter the story in the way in which does. What happens here in the Shangri Ramayana, the Kulu Ramayana, is that these images are, many of these, not all, are portrayed on a ground which is of the color of mustard, rice, rye as we call it. Mustard color, is that yellow. And the entire ground is of mustard. I mean, this photograph doesn't show it that well. But as I was saying to you, that all these pictures were hand pictures. You know, the pictures have to be held in your hand. It is meant to be held by one person. And as you can imagine, that the picture would not remain static because your hand would move. What happens here is that the painter has used gold. But the gold he has made of the tint of the color, the yellow of mustard. So what happens is that when it is matte, that color, gold, on the deer, on marriage, when it is matte, it camouflages. And you see only spots and lines. You don't see the deer. So deer almost dissolves into the background, because the background of mustard and the color of gold are identical, with the result that the marriage has gone. But the moment your hand moves a little, and it comes alive. Gold, it shines, it literally takes over you. And what you see through the eyes of Ram, don't you? Thank you very much.